We view airports as nodes in a global transit network, but once through the sliding doors, you enter a highly regulated, strictly captive microeconomy. There are rigid physical barriers to entry here. Space is heavily constrained by security perimeters and massive aircraft infrastructure. Traditional free market competition simply cannot exist inside a terminal. This physical isolation creates immediate economic distortions. Passengers become a captive audience, leading to extreme retail markups and severe physical bottlenecks as thousands of people are funneled through limited corridors. To understand how this space functions, you have to examine the till. This is the core regulatory and financial ledger framework that determines exactly how an airport builds its infrastructure and generates its revenue. Making sense of an airport's chaotic layout and daily friction points requires looking past the aircraft entirely. The answers lie in the underlying financial incentive structure. Measured aviation regulators primarily recognize two accounting models. The first is single till. Under this regulation, all commercial revenue generated by the airport is pooled to offset the airline's operational costs. The economic logic is symbiotic. Airlines bring passengers who buy retail goods. Profits from these commercial activities go into a shared pool to lower airline fees. Cheaper tickets spur an influx of traffic, generating even more commercial revenue in a self-sustaining cycle. The alternative model is dual till. Here, commercial revenues are completely isolated from aeronautical revenues and kept strictly by the airport operator. This splits the incentives. Aviation operations yield fixed, highly regulated returns, while retail offers massive profit margins. The terminal's footprint changes in response. Operators direct capital toward building expansive retail concourses at the direct expense of core aeronautical infrastructure like gates. Dual-till regulation transforms the terminal's primary function. The facility stops prioritizing passenger movement and begins operating as an environment engineered to maximize revenue extraction from a trapped audience. This hyper-commercialization creates a condition of monopolistic competition among the vendors operating inside the terminal. Airport authorities charge these vendors artificially inflated rents. They can do this because the vendors are guaranteed a high-throughput audience that has cleared security and has absolutely no alternative options for food or supplies. To counter this, many airport authorities implement street pricing mandates. This policy legally requires terminal restaurants and shops to charge the exact same prices as their locations outside the airport. This acts as an artificial price ceiling. Quasi-governmental authorities impose this rule to prevent vendors from passing their inflated rent costs directly onto the consumer. It is a direct intervention designed to correct the market failure caused by the total lack of consumer choice inside the security perimeter. While price ceilings keep costs down for the consumer, they do not resolve the physical friction created by pumping high volumes of travelers through a highly concentrated retail space. Maximizing retail throughput while maintaining strict aviation security creates severe, high-volume operational bottlenecks. The most significant choke point occurs at the screening perimeter. The mandatory unpacking and surrender of liquids and aerosols grinds security lines to a halt. Because of strict health and security regulations, this confiscation usually requires the costly, legally mandated incineration of perfectly usable products. Brisbane Airport deployed a highly targeted behavioral intervention just before the checkpoint to address this friction, initiating an aerosol donation program. They installed a specialized disposal station designed to intercept these products and segregate them from general waste. The station uses specific visual nudges, distinct colored panels, and explicit instructions, prompting passengers to donate their items rather than throwing them in the trash. This allows the airport to bypass mandatory incineration costs, maintain passenger throughput at the checkpoint, and execute a successful diversion of goods to local charities. Redesigning the choice architecture just steps before a bottleneck translates a legal liability into an operational and social efficiency. Once past security, operators face a second major friction point: massive cross-contamination of recycling streams within the retail atrium. The enormous volume of food and beverage sales generates high rejection rates at recycling facilities, making standard waste sorting economically unviable for the airport. To address consumer confusion over eco-labeled but non-recyclable disposable cups, Christchurch Airport initiated Project Coffee Cup. In a high-stress, high-distraction environment, standard, text-heavy, color-coded bins completely fail to capture passenger attention. The airport deployed a behavioral engineering solution, shaping the actual disposal bin to mimic the exact physical profile of the target contaminant. This physical affordance overrides the need for a passenger to read a label. It directly and subconsciously alters their disposal behavior. This chart tracks Christchurch Airport's waste diversion. We see an immediate quantitative success, with the gray diversion line rising sharply in June after the bins were introduced. It stabilized above 50% and maintained that elevation through December, proving the nudge's long-term viability. When macroeconomic policies create high-friction retail environments, micro-behavioral nudges become a highly cost-effective way to preserve operational flow. The modern airport terminal is a fragile, closed-loop ecosystem built on extreme physical and economic constraints. Capital regulation, like dual-till accounting, initiates a cascade of economic incentives that dictates how the physical building is constructed. Those macroeconomic decisions require artificial market controls, like street pricing, to protect the consumer from complete exploitation. Moving millions of people through this highly commercialized trap demands hyper-targeted behavioral operations to prevent the system from collapsing under its own weight. Mastering the airport paradox means successfully aligning the abstract financial ledger with the chaotic physical reality of the concourse floor.